This home was completely transformed using our concrete overlay countertop kits. We coated this TV mantle, a newly built breakfast bar, and the kitchen countertops. Today, we will go through the step-by-step process of how we coated this TV mantle to give it a more modern look. It was a simple process that made a huge difference. Check the description below for more info or visit us at www.leggari.com to get your concrete overlay countertop kit today.
We're getting ready to coat this mantle above the fireplace here. It's just textured, painted like the walls, but we want to make it look like concrete. It'll add a cool look to this area right here. And our primers for our overlays will bond directly to painted walls. So we don't have to do really any prep to this. We just want to make sure it's nice and clean, and our primers will chemically bond to this paint. So it's very, very cool stuff. And then we can just do our concrete overlay process. And then when we're done, this is going to look like 4.5, 5 inch slab of concrete, and it's going to add a lot of cool depth to this room, this area. So tape off the edges, and when we're taping, we want to tape a little bit high, because if we tape all the way to the edge here, our overlay is going to lock that tape in, and then you're going to have to cut it out. So you'll notice all of our tape edge is just about an 1/8 inch high all the way around, and then on the edges here we stopped it. On the edge here, you could carry that back if you want to make it look like it goes all the way back, but they decided to stop it here. And then obviously clean it really good, plasticed off underneath, because we are going to drip some overlay off of this, and then we have thick milled plastic on the bottom. So very simple process to prep this to be able to make it look like concrete. All right guys, so we got it hydrated. We're gonna apply this the same exact way as that first coat. The only difference is when we are done, we're gonna run this squeegee different directions all over the whole surface. That's gonna create a really cool, ununiform look when we're all done. So we'll start in the back. All right, so I got that kind of finished off. Any thick spots are feathered out. Now we're just gonna run a random pattern on it. So I got the material ready for the scratch coat. Before you guys start this process, it's always good to pre-hydrate like we did on that second coat. But I like to pre-hydrate a little bit more, let it soak in, hydrate it again. That way it's completely satisfied. It'll give you more working time. This goes on so thin, it has a tendency to dry out a little faster. But if you hydrate well, and like I said before, so it's not soaking up any of the polymers out of that, it's gonna give you a lot more working time. It's gonna be easier to level off and scratch coat it. So take your time, hydrate, wait a couple minutes, 5-10 minutes, let that soak in, spray it again. And then if you guys have puddling or anything, you can wipe that up with a rag right before you start. But this has been hydrated like 4 times. A couple dry spots, but I'm not really worried about that. You could take a little I don't know what you call these, little sprayers, right? We got water in it. You can go around and just hit those dry spots. But again, we just don't want puddling or any thick spots of water that's pooling up. And then we're gonna be using a steel trowel, like a putty knife, because we're just trying to scratch it really tight. As you can tell, I'm not really worried about making a mess here. We're just getting it coated. And I'll make sure I get it all brushed in under there. As you can kind of see how rough this face is, I'm gonna let that set up for a minute. Let's throw another coat on that face, and that'll help make it a lot flatter. It's just a little too wet right there. All right, so we can leave chunks like this on the edge, right? And then once this sets up a little, we can just rub it in with our hand and really mold those corners so they look really natural, like it was poured in a form. So I'll let this set up a little bit and show you how to rub it in. All right, so once it sets up a little bit, we can just kind of rub in, feather out these edges, rub in the corners, and just make it look really nice. If it's too wet, it'll kind of clump up on you, so just let those spots set up a little more. And then don't worry if it gets too hard and you can't rub it in, you can always sand it. And ideally use a glove that's flat and not textured, but you can use a piece of plastic. So before we do the stain, they want a darker counter. Now you guys, if you're going for like a natural gray, you can just apply the top coat to your counter. So we would apply the top coat now. But if you want to stain it, which we're going to do next, we'll show you that process. But you can always go around and kind of fine tune any imperfections. We like to use like 220 grit, a fine grit. If you have like a thick spot, a heavy spot, you can use 80 grit and then finish it off with 220 grit. But the biggest thing is you want to be careful on your corners, on your faces. These are pretty rounded for like counters and stuff. You'd want to be real careful on the smaller corners, right? And you just want to sand very careful because we don't want to sand through. So we always do these by hand. If you have to hit the top a lot, you can do a palm sander, but it's always good to use a fine grit. That way you're not sanding through very fast. So we already did this, but it's real simple. Just kind of run this on there and you can really fine tune everything. So this has already been hit. That's kind of how you would hit your edges. And I always like to kind of sand a spot, make sure I'm not sanding through. So that's really it for sanding. We'll go into staining next. So we're getting ready to stain. I want to just talk about, if you guys want that natural gray look, you would just urethane top coat over this. But if you want different tones, different hues, you can use our Leggari stains for that. So you can kind of see the difference. This is our black rubbed in with just a rag. And then obviously this is no stain here. So kind of like a natural concrete color. And then this is obviously darker. We have browns, blacks, some grays. So just depending on the color, the tone that you're looking for, you can achieve a lot of different looks using the stain. So all I'm gonna be doing is just dipping this rag and then kind of wringing it out. And then we just kind of rub it on. It's really fast. It's easy. We just don't want to get really any drips up there. And then we just start rubbing this around. And then once it dries out, I'll just get more on there and just keep rubbing it in. So you can tell it really enhances that texture, that random texture that we put in on that second coat. And all I'm doing here is just kind of feathering it out so we don't really have any hard lines. So you can see how fast it dries, really quick. So once it's dry, we can top coat it. And then just to keep in mind, the black and the dark brown will stain like this with the rag. If you're trying like the light browns, the dark grays, those are kind of just rub right off. So you almost have to spray those on. You just want to be careful when you're doing vertical surfaces that you don't get drips. So again, the lighter color stains, you can't really rub them on with the rag. It'll just kind of wipe the color right off. You have to really spray those to get that stain to stick in that color. The dark brown and the dark brown and the black, you can stain with the rag just like this. So I'm just taking a paintbrush to get all the way in this corner here. So the stain's dry, and again, once the stain's dry, we can apply our top coat. We're gonna be doing our matte urethane. We also have a gloss urethane. You can even flood coat these in epoxy, and we even have a grit additive for the urethane if you want to, for extreme durability, scratches resistance. So we have a lot of options for top coats in protecting the coatings that you're doing in your guys' homes. But yeah, this is simple. So I have it mixed up. We're gonna dip and roll. I got a 6-inch roller, 3/8 nap. I've de-shedded it. I've ran it on some tape, and I'm just gonna dip and roll this on. We wanna put it on thin. Stuff's made to go on thin, so we're gonna put it on thin. And then we're just making sure we don't have any thick edges, stuff like that. But very simple process, it's fast. And these urethanes are extremely durable for wear and tear. So I always like to kind of soak the roller up for a minute before I start. And since these overlays are so porous, we like to do 2 coats. So once I kind of roll everything out, I'm just doing a final back roll, getting rid of any thick lines, make sure I don't have any drips on my faces. And that's kind of the process. So I like to do small sections at a time, because once it's rolled out, it starts to soak into the overlay and it'll kind of dry out relatively quick. So we want to move fast. So that's it, guys. That's our first coat. Now like I said, we do 2 coats on the overlay because it is porous. That's gonna soak in a lot. That second coat isn't gonna soak in as much because it's already been sealed. But the cool thing about this is that once it goes clear, you can kind of see how it's milky white. It'll dry clear. Once it dries clear, we can do our second coat, so we don't have to wait till the next day. It can take anywhere from a half an hour to an hour, hour and a half. If you put some airflow on it, it'll dry it out a lot faster. So once it's clear, we do another coat. Never want to coat a second coat over it when it's got that white haze to it. We want that moisture to evaporate out before we do that second coat. While this is drying, I always like to put the urethane in just like a garbage bag. And then I like to seal it up because we don't want this urethane in here to kind of get crusted over and then leave chunks out on our next coat, because we can reuse this same roller and everything. So just seal it up in a garbage bag, twist up the end, and then when we're ready to use it, we won't have any issues. Okay, so we're ready. You can see this is clear now. We don't have any white. There's no milky white haze to it, so we can apply that second coat. And we waited about 35, 40 minutes, and we're gonna just apply it the same exact way. And it is gonna go a little farther now that the surface is kind of sealed. You kind of see one dip's getting half of this versus the first coat. Same thing, that we want to move quick, just get it all rolled out, and then we'll fine tune it with that back roll. That's it, guys. So we'll let this set up, pull the tape, and we'll check it out when it's all cleaned up.